Hello and welcome to Sunset TV. You're watching Big Picture with me, Vishal Dahiya. Now, today we're going to talk about the PLI boost to manufacturing sector. In fact, India has become a very well-known brand all across the world, and to leverage the benefits of this newfound trust, the government seemingly is focusing on the manufacturing sector, trying to increase the speed and scale through various policies, through various strategies, and the production-linked incentive scheme for several product lines in this particular sector has also been cleared by the government. Today, we're going to talk about that PLI scheme. Also, how will it boost, give a boost rather, to the manufacturing sector, and how will it help the overall economic growth of the country as well? And to understand this in much better sense, we have with us a distinguished panel of guests. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey. He is the former Special Secretary and Financial Advisor of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. We also have with us Mr. Sanjay Bhatia, President, Metal Containers Manufacturers Association at PhD Chamber. Welcome, both of you gentlemen. Let me begin by speaking to Dr. Pandey here. Dr. Pandey, let's first try and understand the scope of things to be done in the manufacturing sector, and then how will it help if you know the focus is on this particular sector?
Vishalji, the show is big picture, and I want to give you the big picture in this PLI scheme with a background. You see, the way our economy has progressed since independence, we have seen the transformation from an agrarian economy to more and more service-oriented economy. From 52% to GDP in agriculture is now less than 20%, whereas service sector is more than 55%. But what is the in between left is a stagnant is the manufacturing sector, which for decades is stuck at a rate of about 16% of GDP. If we add construction, it adds another 28% there. So these two sectors, the secondary sectors, which can provide lot of quality jobs, they have not grown as much as they should have. Okay. And the reasons are manifold. One of the reasons is the burden on the industry of multiple taxes, tariffs, and cross subsidies, high cost of capital, and regulatory overdose for various reasons. So because of this, the manufacturing is not competitive. To make it part of a global value chain, to make competitive, it scale up production. And for scaling up production, you also need to produce things that will be internationally competitive, add domestic demand and export demand. Then another dimension is that if you want to remove the burden of these cross subsidies, taxes and tariffs, you can certainly offload taxes on your exports. But beyond a certain point, if you do anything that will be, there is a subsidizing export directly, which is against the WTO rules. And we have been a founding member of WTO with the rule-bound approach to this thing. Definitely. So in this broader context, what this scheme seeks to do is that provide additional incentive over and above any other existing incentive. We have, regional basis. If you set up industry in particular Himalayan states, etc., you will get some concession. This is all over and above that. It is like a cashback from GST. So if for 13 sectors, the PLI scheme has been approved by government. So in these sectors, the baseline production, say 1920, whatever you have sold, over and above whatever incremental sales the industry makes in next 5 years, it will be given a percentage. It will vary from sector to sector, 4%, 5%, 6%. You take 5% as an average. So you sell 100 crore, you get 5 crore cashback. And with this calculation, if the total PLI incentive approved by government or expected to be disbursed is 2 lakh crore. And if you take 5% as average, it means 40 lakh crore worth of export or sale in next 5 years, which is as much as 20% of GDP. And if you spread in 5 years, it means 4% GDP every year, from 16% to 20%. So these are the broad calculations, and the biggest sectors in this are automobiles, mobile electronics, advanced batteries, pharma, and also some which are more employment intensive in terms of food processing and textile. So this is the broad premise.
Okay, definitely. And that puts in perspective, those numbers puts in perspective a lot of things about the entire manufacturing sector, the importance of the sector, and the PLI scheme as well. Let me bring in the industry perspective here as well. Mr. Bhatia is here with us. Mr. Bhatia, from your point of view and from the industry's point of view, how would you perceive the state of affairs in the entire manufacturing sector as of today?
I think what Mr. Pandey said, I totally agree that what exactly is the theme behind this PLI, because you see manufacturing being constant at around 16% of the GDP. I think and we had been talking about taking it to 25, 26%. We had been hearing all that. How do we really reach there? I think this is one of the things which would help the manufacturing. The government has identified 13 sectors to start with. And I think from that point of view, this is going to help not only those sectors, but the MSMEs which are connected with those sectors. I think there would be anchor units in each and every sector, which would help the other MSMEs to really take benefit and take advantage of this scheme. I think this scheme is excellent scheme. Apart from, as he said, that this is over and above whatever the earlier schemes are there. I think that's something which is very, very important. Now, where are we? Why we are not able to move up in the manufacturing? I think it's important to understand these are. We had been talking about ease of doing business. We had been talking about compliance costs. We have been talking about regulatory. Overload of regulatory requirements in this sector. Today for manufacturing, I think if you see the MSME in particular, the person has to really spend his time in compliances and other things rather than focusing on the manufacturing and increasing his quality, increasing his product market, and doing all that. I think this scheme will incentivize many units who are there. I think this is my initial comment that we, from the industry perspective, we welcome this PLI scheme, and hopefully this would be extended across all the sectors. Why only 13? Let it be extended across all the sectors so that each and every sector which performs, which is contributing today to the manufacturing, because the more the manufacturing, more the employment generation which would happen. I think from that point of view, it should be extended across all these sectors and start with 13, but have a target that we are going to really do that across all these sectors. And as Dr. Pandey said, it would be 2 lakh crores to start with, which has been a budget has been provided this year. Which would be obviously 40 lakh crore of manufacturing, additional manufacturing, if the industry is able to take benefit of that. If it goes across all the sectors, it would be much more than this. And this is where India requires to be positioned in the world. And not only the exports will increase, it is the domestic consumption also, which is very, very important for all of us.
Definitely.
In particular, if you want, I can just mention about 2 sectors, particularly.
Please go ahead.
Food processing. I think food processing is something which is very, very critical. India can be food factory for the world. We are number 1, number 2 in various food items. And where we are not able to really use is add value to those. We are, the country wastes. There's a food loss of about almost 30%. We process only 6, 7, 8%. Less than 10%, let me put it this way. Okay. I think there's a huge potential of the food process industry to add values. And then with that, it would provide employment. It would give more income to the farmers also. And this would really bring huge change in the whole sector. What, as someone said, I would really like to repeat that what IT has done for urban India, food processing will do for rural India. I think this is what is the key, and we should really focus on that and see how do we really incentivize. Apart from food,
Okay.
it's important that if food has to reach the consumers in India and overseas, it's important to promote packaging. I think the packaging will go along with that. I am a man from packaging. That is why I'm bringing this. So, because it's important that packaging industry has to work along with the food process industry, and both has to go along, and it has to be incentivized by the government.
Definitely. Those are the two key sectors which you're pointing out, Mr. Bhatia, food processing and packaging as well. But there are others also identified by the government. And you're right there when you're pointing out, saying that, it will have a tremendous positive effect on both domestic consumption and the export as well. And a lot of background work is being done, in addition to these policies and these strategies. One of the concept here is minimum government and maximum governance. I'd like to bring you here, Dr. Pandey. In terms of putting this particular concept on the ground or in the form of implementing it on various levels, various scales in different sectors, how would you review the work which is being done on that part, ensuring minimum government and maximum governance?
I think in this direction, a steady work is going on by the central government in collaboration with the state governments, where we have introduced a spirit of competitive federalism by introducing state rankings for ease of doing business. The World Bank exercise for ease of doing ranking is done with reference to what happens in Mumbai and Delhi. But Government of India has on its own expanded the scope by covering many metros, and whatever systemic improvements are done in speeding up giving clearances, etc., that they are generalized to everywhere as part of the general system. So some of the mechanisms are like centralized registration, doing away with multiple registration. You register at one place, give all the documents at one place, and then you don't have to give it again and again. The automatic approvals, time-bound approvals, deemed approvals, this has also been introduced in several areas. The inspections regime, to cut down the arbitrary inspection Raj, the randomized risk-based inspections, which are registered, centrally generated, risk profiled, to give a boost to the industry that they are not being arbitrarily targeted. So extent of regulation is one thing, and businesses, or for that matter, and anybody can live with regulations, provided these are fairly, equitably applied, not arbitrarily. So when the overdose of regulation, apart from that, the problem is about the arbitrary application. Okay. So when there is an approach to risk-based applications of inspections, etc., that problem is also there. But more than the regulatory compliance, it is the cost part on which a lot of work is really required to be done. And if that is not done, there is a risk that the PLI 5% itself may not be sufficient to attract the additional manufacturing, because if the benefit is taken away by increase in cost of various burdens, statutory and non-statutory. So if in 5 years' time, it is a window during which we have to see that the cost of compliance, ease of compliance improves, cost of compliance comes down, so that bulk of this 5% really becomes additional post-tax income to the industries, and he can look forward to staying beyond 5 years, because this cannot be for all times to come.
Okay. Mr. Bhatia, from your perspective, sir, and from industry's perspective on these two aspects, specifically the ease of doing business and the cost of reducing the burden of compliance, that is also really important. So the steps which have been taken, or the work which is being done or is ongoing, how would you assess that from the industry's point of view? And what more might be required to do there? Suggestions thereof?
I think let me compliment the government for doing a lot of work there and and working on reducing the governance governance and maximizing the compliance. I think it's important that I think we need to really keep on working on that. The more and more focus on the digital economy, as we call it. So more and more focus on that use of digital technology so that we can comply with and focus more on production and productivity rather than really spending time on the compliances and all. Ease of doing business is the key for India. I mean, apart from ease of doing business, it is important that the inputs, whether it is funding, whether it is energy, whether it is power, whether it is logistics, I think all these costs also have to be addressed. That these costs have to go down. We are still very high cost economy. I
Okay.
mean, we are paying an rate of interest average is 10 to 12% or 13%, while globally or internationally, if you see other countries, it is 2-3% or it linked with LIBOR. So I think there's a need to look at the cost of the energy, cost of my doing business, how this can really bring down. Because on the one hand, we are opening the economy and we are inviting entering into the free trade agreements and getting into the goods and all. I think on the other, we have to see that how do we improve the competitiveness of Indian manufacturing. So that's something which needs to be addressed. As regards the compliances, I think we should move more towards, and we are, but we should move more towards self-regulation, self-attesting, self-certifications. I think these are the things which needs to be emphasized, which are being done in various sectors. I mean, the reform in the labor laws, I think that's one of the things which is important and which a big step which government has taken. And maybe from 1st of April, we see the new labor codes which would come. I think that would replace these four codes will replace at least 48 or 50. I mean, so many acts. I think these are the things which requires, because I mean, again, I would say that India is mainly driven, I mean, by MSMEs. The
Okay.
MSMEs which provide main employment and the number of units, et cetera, which are there. I think they do not know all these statutory, the laws and the compliances, what they have to do. They know how to run the business. But then we should give those kind of help, those kind of things to them so that gradually we clean up all these things and they can focus on the product and productivity. I think that's something which is important for
Okay.
India to grow.
Okay,
Yeah.
definitely. Fair enough. Those suggestions seemingly are on the right line, positive line out there. Dr. Pandey, in your view, the kind of points which are being mentioned by Mr. Bhatia here, how would you suggest, their implementation and how feasible they might be? And also the road ahead in terms of the entire manufacturing sector, all across the various platforms and the way this entire process is being pushed forward by the government here?
I think the first thing we have to realize is that the more than 99% of the manufacturing or business ecosystem is MSME, especially after the recent redefinition and scaling up. More than 99% is MSME only. So when we talk MSME, it is almost the entire business ecosystem. Now, so why the MSMEs have arisen in the first place, why they have not scaled up, why they are shying away from scaling, it is the regulations which have encouraged this tendency.
Okay.
So the deregulation will provide a scope for basically dodging the scaling up, which is very much required for economic logic. The other thing is that the apart from the cost of regulation and taxes and duties and cross subsidies, which is a very substantive work, more than the procedure, is about rationalization of taxes. The tax burden incidence falls on few commodities, few businesses, few entities, because the base is low and it is not equitably distributed over a large base. So the digitalization, formalization, broad basing of taxation, it will automatically take care of many of the disincentives that are built in dodging and remaining informal, remaining incentive, remaining small. Any perverse incentives should go away. And people should take these decisions based on business logic, not based on the tax considerations or labor or other regulatory law considerations.
Okay. Okay. And in your view, Dr. Pandey, since we are here talking about this, and suggestion came in from Mr. Bhatia as well earlier in his responses that, more sectors need to be identified for this PLI scheme. As of now, there are 13. Do you think it'll be prudent, and is it possible to go ahead and add more sectors to it at this stage, or maybe in the further stages we can think about the government might plan to go ahead with that?
Personally, I think that won't be a recommended strategy. If we start something, because that requires focus, and if we give everywhere, then we lose focus. Though if the rains fall on everywhere, the productivity is not the same if they intensively at certain particular part of the ground. So if we extend it everywhere, it will become a general scheme. It will become like a 5% reduction in GST rate per se for all across, as good as that. So then it will lose focus. And then it is carefully chosen with backward and forward linkages with exports and backward linkages to promotion of linked enterprises. So I think we must work. Even this is a big challenge. It is not an easy walk. Even these 13 sectors next 5 years is a big challenge today.
Okay. Let's take a quick concluding comment from Mr. Bhatia as well before we bring this discussion to an end. On the road ahead, Mr. Bhatia, given all the points which we have discussed, given the strategies which have been put in place, policies which are being put in place, obviously there are a lot of expectations from both sides. Government has it from the industry has it from the government, but looks like both of them will have to walk this entire stretch hand in hand.
Well, I would tend to little disagree with Dr. Pandey on that it should not be extended. Reason being that he himself said that 99% of the manufacturing is MSME. So I think from that point of view, it is important to really look at how do we really see that major sector, the major chunk is benefited. But nevertheless, we welcome the initiation of the government to provide PLI on 13 sectors, which is absolutely welcome by the industry, and let those sectors grow. Let us see the success of that, and maybe then we can look at extension, but not in 5 years, maybe earlier. Secondly, the industry, the manufacturing, in case they have to grow and they have to perform, they have to look at innovation, producing best quality goods, particularly participation in R&D, upgrade the manpower skill, and use the new technology so that they are competitive globally and India is able to export. I think that's something which is very, very important. And the government also, apart from cleaning up the regulatory overdose, I think it's important to really see that we do not have non-tariff barriers also, which is also important apart from the tariff barriers, which do restrict the flow of the goods and the imports, etc., into the country.
Okay. So there it is. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay Bhatia, as well as Dr. Subhash Chandra Pandey, for your very important views in making us understand the holistic aspect of this PLI scheme for the 13 sectors, specific focus on manufacturing here, the boost to manufacturing, why it is required, how will it help not only these sectors, but also the entire economy to grow in a specific manner. We'll come back again with a different topic on Monday, and we'll continue that discussion. Till then, you keep watching Sunset TV. Thank you.